Big question, what happens next, especially when we're talking about those goods made in China that Americans purchase? Let's turn now to our panelists. Virginia Allen joins us, senior news producer and podcast host for the Daily Signal. Rick Gates is here as well, former Trump campaign aide. Welcome to you both, and thanks for coming on. All right, Virginia, we'll start with you. Good morning, indeed. We've got to talk tariffs. You can't avoid it right now. What's your read on what we saw yesterday from the White House and then the reaction, including from China, we noticed this morning?
President Trump was incredibly clear yesterday, and I actually think one of the most profound statements that the president made, and that really encapsulates what the president's vision here is, he said, no other president is going to do this. And that is Trump's take on this, that he is the man to do this. He really doesn't care what people are going to say in the immediate. He recognizes, and his vision, his belief is that these are actions that are going to ensure the long-term health of America's economy, of our manufacturing industry. And so he's willing to take some slings and arrows in the short term for that long-term vision of really bringing that manufacturing back to the United States. And in regards to China, I think so much of really these tariff policies that Trump is implementing is in large part because of China, because we have seen the U.S. economy really give so much of our economic revenues and all of that industry to China. And Trump is saying that ends, and it's going to end in my presidency, and it's going to require really, really bold action to pull those industries away from China back into the United States. And so Trump is willing to maybe, and I think he's been clear about, okay, there might be a pain point for a minute. Stay with me. The long-term vision is good news at the end.
The long-term vision, yeah, good point. Rick Gates, I'll bring you into the conversation. You hear from economists on television and also in print, and you hear from big business owners here in the States talking about how tariffs are horrible. It's going to destroy the U.S. economy and how we deal with trade with other countries. And I'm looking at the markets, and the markets are liking what they're seeing, at least right now. And then you couple that with the 70 countries that have been reported by the White House that have already made phone calls to the president or wanting to set up and deal already. And we're not even a week into this thing, Rick.
Yeah, look, no president has ever done anything like this in the history of our country. And I think that President Trump, in his vision and what he's outlined, this is not a surprise. It's not a shock. He talked about this in his campaign. But I think one important note in this is if you look at where he's gaining credibility, it's yes, over 70 countries are saying, hey, we want to negotiate a positive tariff resolution like Israel did yesterday, like Japan will likely do this week. That is all building credibility with President Trump's plan. But more importantly, if you look at the cohesiveness of his cabinet, of his administration, everybody is in lockstep on this. So, in the first term, people would say, wow, Trump is out there. This is a nutty idea. This time you have people like Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, Jamison Greer, people that are experienced in tariffs, know what they're doing. They're saying this is the right approach. I think that's given the administration a lot more credibility on this. And I think China is going to be in a very difficult position when they decide what to do, come noon today.
Right. And it's so true. By the hour, things are changing. We're about 20 minutes away from opening bell on Wall Street. So we'll see exactly how the markets are reacting. But you said in the green,
all in the green, yeah,
pre-market trading here. So that's pretty big. The president, again, posting on Truth Social most recently, saying all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will begin taking place immediately. And Virginia, take away from that, you probably don't want to be the last country to call up the president there.
I don't think so. And I loved what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday. And that was actually a huge win for Trump, having that meeting in the Oval Office. Because what Benjamin Netanyahu said was, we want to be a model for other countries to say, hey, you can come to the table, you can negotiate. And Trump was asked, would you consider pausing these tariffs while negotiations are ongoing? And he said, well, we're not looking at that. But he made it clear, I'm open. In the same way I'm negotiating with Israel, negotiating with Japan, people are coming to the table. I want these negotiations to take place. And again, it's to that the U.S. has been taken advantage of. The president's been clear he wants to end that. So certainly right. You don't want to be the last country calling to ask for negotiations, but the president's been pretty clear that he's open to those negotiations, but probably sooner rather than later.
And just quickly, it goes to point as well to what one fake news headline can do and influence the markets that we saw yesterday. That there was no credibility to that 90-day pause. The president, the White House confirmed that, but someone saw it out there and it got posted and more than 1 million views, and markets responded only to find out that wasn't real. But again, here we are today, more than 70 countries, according to the White House, ready to deal based on these tariffs. Virginia Allen, Rick Gates, thanks so much.